Over the weekend, it's interesting because when you prepare yourself for the game and the team's prepared, each game's going to tell its own story. And so our Friday night's game, I thought the first 4 or 5 minutes we played well. After a long break, in a small rink and an environment that is challenging to play in. We basically shot ourselves in the foot, I call it, because after the first 4 or 5 minutes, we took 4 straight penalties in about a 7-minute span. A couple of them were on 5-on-3s. I looked at it after the first period like we survived it. We were only down 1-0. It could have been, a lot different. And so as we started the second period, same thing. I thought the first initial 3 or 4 shifts was good. Challenged the team to come out and, we win a 40-minute game. You have a chance to win the entire game, even though we were down 1-0. But after about the third or fourth shift, same thing happened. We took back-to-back penalties. We ended up killing them off. But the underlying theme of the game was when it was finished, I just thought we didn't compete consistently for the entire 60 minutes. So on Saturday morning in our meeting prior to our meal, we talked about that. We talked about and showed some of the film. And what the difference was between, competing and winning 50-50 battles and not doing that. And if we were going to be successful Saturday, we needed to do it for 60 minutes. And so that was the challenge of the group. And right from the opening face-off Saturday, you could tell we had our bounce back. We were on a mission. We were focused in on what we needed to do to have success that day, and we did that for 60 minutes. And the end result is you ended up winning the game 5-2. So I was happy with our response. It's a tough facility to play in. There's not a lot of connected passes just because of the dimensions and the rink being so small. It's like watching ping pong or pool or video games where the thing goes back and forth real fast. If you're a coach, you really don't like coaching in those environments because there's way too many turnovers. But I like the way we responded, and now the challenge is, as we talked, this morning before practice, was to get ourselves prepared and understand what we learned from this past weekend and get ourselves ready for Minnesota Friday and Saturday up there. That's a pretty good opening statement, wasn't it? I'm like, whoa.
I don't know if we have anything left, but when you and Minnesota are number 1 and 2 in the rankings like you are going into this weekend, does that add anything to what it already is? It's already pretty much the peak of what this game offers, but adding that little nugget to it maybe adds a little bit more, I guess.
I think, on the surface it probably adds some things. Both teams have had good seasons up to this point. They've played consistently well and, have earned the right to be where we're at. But, in the big picture, and you look deeper into it, it doesn't mean a lot. You have to still do the things necessary. As I mentioned earlier, there's certain things that you have to do in every game, and no matter who you're playing or where you're playing them at, there's a list of 3, 4, 5 things that you have to do well if you're going to be successful. Obviously, when you play a team like Minnesota in their building, it magnifies those 4 or 5 things that you have to do well. So we'll get a chance to look at some video of their past couple games. We'll get a chance to practice here for 3 or 4 days to prepare. But the teams get excited. A lot of these players know each other now, having played on different teams with their national program, and I think the players themselves get excited for the game. So the history tells me, and I'm sure we'll see it Friday night, that first 8 or 10 minutes is going to be some pretty high-octane, fast-paced, entertaining hockey. So I'm sure there will be big crowds up there, and it'll be a good challenge for our team. We learned some lessons this past weekend, and now can we continue to progress and try to make ourselves better going up against a real strong opponent in their building.
How do
players getting stronger?
Yeah.
Throwing those medicine balls around.
Or they're trying to get in here through a different door. How do weekends like last weekend, this upcoming weekend, make you better for March? I mean, March is the time of the year where these kind of games, they prepare you for that. How do you use it?
It's a great question. Saturday, as we were leaving the rink, I expressed to the team that I thought we competed for the 60 minutes. We did well, but, now the step is to get better for Minnesota, continue to get better. So as we progress into the middle of February, we're playing better than we did Saturday night in Columbus. And so that's the challenge, is to continue to try to get better. I think, having Ohio State in their building, top 10 team, now going up to Minnesota, top 10 team in their building, is only going to make you stronger. And so whether you're successful, you're not successful, you take video away, players take the experience away, and you can become stronger because of that. I remember one year, I don't know what year it was, early in my career, we played Duluth, our opening series of the season. And, we were both top 5 teams, and everybody's like getting nervous, and I'm thinking, this is great. You're going to find out where you are at that particular journey or junction in the season. It was like in September, so we're going to find out what we're made of early on. And I think that helps, especially for the player standpoint. It gives them an actual visual of what it's like to play at a real high level. If I make a mistake, what do I need to do to correct it? If I want to get better, what do I have to do? If I've had success, how I handle it. So to answer your question, having these 2 games coming out of Christmas break, I think are very helpful. I know this past weekend was an opportunity and a learning experience, and I think we've become better because of it. I'll sit down next Monday and talk to you and probably say the same thing. Whether we've won the games or we haven't won the games, we can become better by playing the games.
Todd?
You mentioned them wanting to compete consistently after Friday's game, looking into Saturday's game. What kind of examples did you show, and what kind of things did they do better Saturday to address that?
Well, I think, it started with face-offs. We weren't active. We weren't engaged when the referee dropped the puck. We started with, 1-2, okay, let's play, instead of engaging and wanting the puck. You've heard before these 50-50 battles. That's going to be one of your bullet points if we're going to be successful, especially in a rink like Ohio State has, where it's small, it's confined, you don't have a lot of time or space. There's going to be multiple 50-50 battles. Are you going to win a majority of those? I'm not asking you to win all of them. Are you going to win a lot of them? And if you looked at Saturday's game compared to Friday's game, Friday night Ohio State won more battles than we did in those areas. And then Saturday night we came back, and when the puck dropped, we were engaged right away. Right from the opening face-off, we went down and we engaged ourselves and we competed. And, it's a visual, like I'm on the bench watching and go, okay, they got the message. Now let's see if we can sustain this for 60 minutes. If I'm a player sitting on the bench, this is what coach is talking about. So in a video, you can show, winning 50-50 battles, not winning 50 battles, engaging, and the overall theme of a visual of a line shift is, did we compete? And so there's a puck here. Do you want it or do I want it? And what am I willing to do to go win that puck battle? And so it was like night and day between Friday and Saturday. And, was it because we hadn't played in 35 days? Possibly. That was probably part of it. As I've said before, we can't match what a game's like. And so in practice, we can do a lot of things, but we can't mimic what a game's like. Until you get into a game and you're going against a different colored jersey, do you really understand what game speed is all about? And it's magnified down at Ohio State because the rink's about as big as this table. And so there's not a lot of time and space, and when you take time and space away from people, that creates battles. So
Is that maybe one of the biggest challenges in college hockey, given that you're asking not to do that only in one game, but over 6 months to be at that level and come back to that every game and every shift? You can imagine human nature is to settle sometimes, but you have to try and draw them back up. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, it's after a game, and I think when you start in the beginning of the season is you talk about consistency and what that and how we define that. And one of them is a consistent effort from the start of the game to the end of the game. Within that, what does it mean to be consistent in these 50-50 battles? Like I mentioned, you're not going to win them all, but in games that you're successful, you're probably going to win a majority of them. And the more games you play, the more chances are there's going to be pockets in there where you're not going to play well. And then you have a little bit of adversity, and how do you challenge yourself to, if the Friday night, all of a sudden you get 4 straight penalties and, you're not writing a script or the story isn't written like that, and all of a sudden you're involved. And I told the team after the first period, we're okay. You know, we just had some adversity. We came out of it, only down 1-0. We got 40 minutes to win a hockey game. You know, let's turn it up. Let's get a little aggressive. Let's see if we can create some opportunities. And, Abby Rock hits the crossbar halfway through the second period. Shirley misses a wide open net about 2 minutes later. And our opportunities that we had, we didn't capitalize. Sam Cogan in the third period's got a wide open net, and the goalie makes a top 10 video on ESPN save. And so we had some opportunities. We just didn't play well enough to really win the hockey game, which, okay. How are we going to change that in the next night? And the next night, we did some of the things that we didn't do Friday night, and then we got rewarded with a win. And so it's a balancing act. I got home Saturday night, and I'm sitting there watching the Minnesota Wild play against, the Detroit Red Wings in Minneapolis. Detroit had played the night before in Winnipeg. They're coming in, obviously a little bit tired, and Minnesota's probably thinking, oh, we got this game. This is going to be an easy one to win. And if you watch the game, it was probably one of the worst games that Wild had played in, I don't know, say 6 or 8 years. And why is that? And so it's an interesting job we have, is to try to motivate. And as I've always said since day one when I took over, was to try to find a team that can play consistently, every period, every game throughout the season. And if you're able to do that, chances are you're going to be pretty successful. Pushing buttons here, pushing buttons there, and some nights they work and other nights they don't. But, the credit goes to the players, because you practice a certain way. And usually you take your practice habits into your game, and our players have been, generally very consistent in their practices. And over the course of the long winter, they've been generally pretty consistent in their effort. And so hopefully as we go down here the next, 12 games, we see that same consistency. I know they'll be excited to play this weekend. Just a natural for coaches to get excited, players to get excited, fans to get excited, and those long days where you work out and you're grinding away, these are the rewards you get playing Friday night up there and Saturday night up there. So I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Julia?
You can thank Paul for this question, but now that the
Thank
temperature
who?
is Paul.
Uh-oh.
But now that
Not
the temperature
outdoor
is
ice. Pretty good if you want to come and skate. I got a pretty good sheet of ice
Yeah.
going right now.
Yeah, how's it
Especially at
shaping
night,
up?
we'll put the lights on and cook up some hot cocoa for you and go snap a few in. We can teach you how to ice skate. I've got my 5-year-old grandson out there. He's trying to figure out. He's actually got both feet going up now and get a little bit of a stride, but we'll just give you good elbow pads. We'll give you a helmet and shin pads so when you fall it doesn't hurt.